As you are aware, fellow citizens of Africa, I greet you in the name of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World. As you are aware, the world in which we live today is divided into separate race groups and distinct nationalities. Each race and each nationality is endeavoring to work out its own destiny to the exclusion of other races and other nationalities. We hear the cry of England for the Englishman, of France for the Frenchman, of Germany for the German, of Ireland for the Irish, of Palestine for the Jew, of Japan for the Japanese, of China for the Chinese. We of the Universal Negro Improvement Association are raising the cry of Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. The great
we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all. I got all kind of stuff in front of me today. This is the Voices of New Africa, the show that is dedicated to the liberation of new African people. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy, and you know what? I got all my comrades here with me. Well, this is where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. We don't have all kind of technical difficulties today. What's this? Let me read this right here. Oh, you can't hear it. But yeah, we've been having all kinds of technical difficulties, but we are here and we're about to lay it down. Our radio broadcast has just ended, and we've been having a lively conversation about socialism and all of the everything around that, everything you need to know about socialism. Grandmaster Teacher, hold on. What's been going on, Comrade Kakayi? I need to fix something with Grandmaster Teacher.
As far as
how you doing, comrade? Talk to the people.
Well,
we live on the air.
Yeah, well, I'm doing as well as can be considering the circumstances, living under oppressive conditions of this United States of America. But I've had enough years in this country to figure out a way to navigate through it without losing sight of my ultimate goal of liberating our people. That's hard to do. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So it's all well and done. Considering the circumstances, I'm able at this point in my life to navigate the system, while at the same time understanding at any given day they can take it away from me because it's theirs. It's not ours. Until we have our own independent sovereign nation, they'll be able to do what they want to do with their resources that they've stolen. And that's what we have to recognize. is that they only have stolen resources, and they dominate those resources by being the ones in control of establishing the laws and public policies that surround controlling and maintaining those resources.
All right, that's what's up. Wanna kind of pick up on what we was doing, what we were talking about earlier. Um, on the radio broadcast, we had an interesting conversation on socialism. Grandmaster Teacher, I noticed interesting point that you made. You know, you was talking about how a lot of American policies were influenced by the socialist movement, really, in order to kind of ward off uh, authentic grassroots socialist movement. There were certain things given, but they placed negative stigma on it. And you compared and contrast like the welfare with subsidize, how government subsidized corporations. Can you go back into that? Into that?
Okay, so in the capitalist system, in capitalism, had been challenged by socialist forces. So they had to make concessions, and the concessions. One of the concessions was making an 8-hour workday, and also having wages for 40 hours a week, and those kind of things. They were forced by socialist forces, talking about, in other words, overthrowing the capitalist system. And capitalism thought it was in danger. So they created what they call a welfare system, in which they have since demonized, and they constantly are demonizing what they call welfare. Which they really didn't do welfare. What they did was made a concession, and so therefore, because our people and the poor in America didn't have adequate housing, and so they created housing developments, and later on they start calling projects and having people calling them projects and all those kind of things, and giving pittance of money to mothers with children, and all of these are socialist policies that were forced by movements of people, organized and trying to, and so therefore, to head off any kind of socialist revolution, they came up with these policies, and then these policies ultimately became policies for the rich, because you got agricultural establishment that own all the land and stuff, and they would give them subsidy not to plant at certain time, and so today you still have subsidies that's given to corporations, of rich people and families who and consequently. So this is socialism under capitalism, because if they had not done that, the United States and Europe and all those places, they would have been overthrown. The same policies and things of welfare took place in all the so-called major capitalist countries, and so therefore anything that's done for the people, they were forced, and so-called national health care in countries in Europe and all that were forced by the movement of people that was engineered at first by socialist forces. But they eliminated many of the socialist forces, that existed at the time, because even in the white community, you had the American Communist Party USA, you had the Socialist Workers Party. They would have an influence, in terms of defining socialism in America, in Europe, and places like that. And then anytime the Africans began to talk about social, like the Black Panther Party, they did physical elimination in terms of assassinating leaders and these kind of things. Whereas in the other area, they just eliminated the forces in terms of, because the Soviet Union failed. The Soviet Union was supporting some of those white social, forces in America. And once the Soviet Union failed, we no longer hear about the Communist Party USA and all that. So consequently, what we have to understand is that it's scientific socialism is when the state can take control. People take control of the state, and the state begins to administer all the resources for the benefit of the people. And so consequently, so, but they have demonized any country that has attempted to feed all these people, to give wealth to all these people, and we use Libya as the most recent example, and Venezuela as the most recent example of how they have undermined the economies of these countries that were feeding their people and doing things for their people, and were helping Cuba and helping other, and even helped some Americans that were complaining about the gas prices and all that. And Brother Chavez, who was president of Venezuela, was making moves to give support from its resources, because Venezuela has the most wealthiest, amount of oil of all countries in the world, including Saudi Arabia and all those other OPEC countries. So the United States has done everything it could to overthrow that system, and by demonizing the leadership of those countries, and because if we're really going to have socialism, it cannot be done in one nation. It's going to have to be a universal world economic system, just like the capitalist is it's the only world economic system at this time. And capitalism is doing everything it can to overthrow any government that is going to try to serve its people. And consequently, our hope is that when all the African countries and new African countries come together and link together, and all the other world forces link together, we'll have a socialist world, and capitalism will be overthrown.
I wanted to go back to something you was talking about a little bit earlier, because you said a lot. And you talked about how like welfare, all of these things came into existence because the power structure was kind of forced to do so, because they didn't want a sincere socialist revolution. Because there have been times in America where we've had a very strong socialist revolution. If you even understand like the true history behind Labor Day, May Day, this was a very revolutionary labor movement in America that was fueled by the socialists. And, the working class were strongly considering socialism is an alternative to capitalism, because the contradiction of capitalism was obvious. But once the power structure implemented these socialist programs like welfare, as you alluded to, they did things like they gave benefits to single women, and with the conditions that the man had to be away from the home, which helped to lead to breakup of families. And really, it was implemented in a way that actually done harm, opposed to just naturally implementing in a way that would just sincerely and authentically benefit the people, like projects in Germany. Adolf Hitler would design communities that would naturally oppress people. I know my brother is actually is a social worker, and he said he did a workshop, and in the workshop, they basically just broke down how you can create neighborhoods in a way that disadvantage the people. Just how by the nature and the way the neighborhoods are created, and people won't even understand what's going on, why they can't succeed. But the infrastructure of the neighborhood is constructed in a way that naturally oppresses the people, naturally takes away the resources from the people, and puts them in a natural disadvantage. So the neighborhoods have very little chance of really thriving. You can study this, philosophy in Nazi Germany. This is what they did. Matter of fact, that's where the whole, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is where the whole concept of a ghetto came from. So what I'm...
Can I say this?
Yes.
Ghetto is going to go back to the 13th, 14th, when Jews basically migrated to Europe,
mm-hmm.
and where they live, let them, they call it ghetto. That's where the word ghetto comes from. That's the origin of the word ghetto. Okay. So and like when we talk about the welfare system, the welfare state was created. So therefore, in all of Europe, you have welfare. You have a welfare state. You have national. It's in the United States. It is the least of all in terms of. But in Europe, throughout Europe, in Western Europe in particular, they have what they call a welfare state, where you got national insurance. You know, everybody got insurance. Everybody got okay, and then housing, public housing, and all that. It's only here that we find the denigration of public housing, the denigration of anything that has to do with so-called welfare and all that. Because the welfare system was not set up for us; it was set up for the poor whites, you know. Because in Memphis, you had white projects. They didn't call them projects. The housing development, you know, and ultimately all of them became black, like Lamar Terrace and Hurt Village and Lauderdale. You know, of course, those were white, you know, housing development, and they didn't call it projects. It only came projects in terms of the black community because they have demonized, you know, and we got the least, and so therefore the whites that was in the so-called white, they went to Section 8 in Frazier and places like that, because we still got poor whites, and you know, in the city of Memphis, and they were the first ones to get Section 8 and all that, you know what I'm saying. And so, and now they have eliminated the so-called project of the housing developments and in the black community, and many of the people on Section 8 they're homeless. Okay, so consequently, that's why we have to make ourselves understand, because they'll make us demonize, denigrate stuff, you know, that the people don't have anything to do with. You know what I'm saying? It's a white supremacists, you know, are able to be in control and come in our community, and they treat us, you know, differently than when they treated the people that was in Hurt Village, you know, the whites and stuff, the Martyrs and those places. Okay, so consequently, this is what I'm saying: is the word welfare has become general, but at the same time,
part of the welfare state was to give subsidies, you know, to capitalist, you know, enterprises that were, you know, because they became owners of all the land, and they start, you know, planting crops and all, you know, what I'm saying. And they were being paid to not plant, you know, sometimes, you know, so they would get that. So they have the subsidy that still exists. So under the welfare state, the subsidy still exists for those people who are not poor. You know what I'm saying? By any stretch of the imagination. And so, but it's only when they dealt with the poor that they cut back, you know, the amount that they would give and all that, food stamps and all that, you know. So, but we have to be careful, you know, because we got to understand that these are originally forced upon the state through, like I said, revolutionary activities of, you know, people and organizations. And so therefore, after the 1930s, you know, the 1940s, they came up with these, you know, welfare policies and things like that. And this is all, and all over Europe right now, you have, you know, the welfare state. You hear what I'm saying? And it's denigrated. Capitalists are always going to denigrate and try to cut back, but they're not able to cut back in those European countries like Britain, you know, to the extent that they want to, because the people will rise up in those areas. You see what I'm saying? And it's only in the white supremacist states like the United States that we're going to see that they want to eliminate any kind of leadership that comes from us, you know. As long as we had a cover, the cover was, you know, like I said, these white organizations that, you know, were organizing white people and organizing us. You see what I'm saying? But they were in control of our activities and all that. And that once they eliminated these white communists, what they call communists, you know, and put them all in jail in the 50s, and you know, and then they began to work on us in terms, because we had become active in our movements, the so-called civil rights movement and human rights movements and things like that, and the Black Panther Party out of California started talking about socialism. They started selling the Red Book on China and all that, you know, that kind of thing, communist China and all that. So we got to understand that this is what the whole basis of all that exploitation is all about. And that's why we have mass incarceration right now, in which they're able to make profit off of us, you know, being the majority in prison because under the 13th Amendment, it said everything but people that go, what they call that chattel slavery was over, but you can still have slavery in prison. Mm-hmm. And so now we have prison being the base of slavery in America. And so consequently, and when we start talking about socialism, we got to understand scientific. So it's the state become under the power of the people, then the state will take back the resources, that the so-called private owner enterprises have accumulated, and began to control the resources for the people as a whole. And this is why you have in NATO and those kind of organizations that are constantly, like now at war with socialism everywhere. That in other words, everywhere it exists, even though we know that socialism cannot exist by one state becoming socialist. And this was one of the mistakes that was made by Stalin, but Stalin in Russia, in the Soviet Union, started saying socialism in one country. It's impossible to have just socialism in one. It has to be a world system of scientific, and it cannot be imposed. Something what it's a mass of people have to come to the point of having power and creating revolutionary activity and overthrowing capitalist system and capitalist states that you would have really true socialism. But if we go back and look at even Europe, we find places like Sweden and North, they were saying they were socialists. You see what I'm saying? But they were actually capitalist countries, but they had socialist, policies and stuff.
I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge our social media audience out there. Big ups to Veronica. How you doing?
Good, Veronica.
Yeah, you back on the scene. And what's up to Comrade Tiva? Good to see y'all. You back. You back. Like you got the king and the queen. Mama Ayo Deli, Vice President, how you doing? How you doing? This is a brother that I don't know. I think who is this? Pronounce that name for me, comrade. Askari, Sanyeki, Malik Set Sakur. I think that's how to pronounce your name, but hey, anyway, whatever it is, free to land. I'm glad you joined us. I see Karina in the house. How you doing, Karina? Good to see you. And we want to welcome back Melly Terry back to the civilian land. She's been in Facebook prison for a very long time. She's a veteran of the Facebook penal system. Good to see you free again. Well, it look like you broke out, Miss Melly Terry. But yeah, glad to see you back, Queen. That's how you pronounce it. But yeah, thank y'all for joining us. Make sure y'all giving us a like and share this. Let everybody know what we're doing, because we're trying to educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. And we're having this discussion on socialism. And you was talking about how under this capitalist system, there's so much exploitation, and really under capitalism, it creates exploitation because the bottom line is to try to gain as much profit as you possibly can for a certain class, a super rich class. And even if that means at the expense and the exploitation of the masses, then so be it, because the benefit of the whole of the people is not what's most important. What's primary is making as much profit under this system of exploitation. And that's why everything in society ultimately leads to corrupt. I mean, you look at all of the institutions, all of the systems, eventually they get corrupt if they don't fail. If they're successful, then eventually they get corrupt, because the better you are at exploiting people, the more successful you are in capitalism. That's just kind of how it is. If you're tall and you play basketball, that gives you an advantage. So, that's just the very nature. So if the nature of your economic system is exploitation, then you're going to see exploitation throughout all of the society. That's the importance of an economic system. That's something that we really got to understand, is how economic systems work. whatever your economic system, all other systems within the society will emerge out of that, because that's how people basically gain the resources they need to survive and distribute the resources that's needed to survive. So if your economic system is foul, if your economic system is corrupt and based on exploitation, then everything is going to be based on exploitation. I mean, look at the music industry. A lot of people have been talking about the music industry and Kanye West and how he said some things that were about the Jews that were actually true. He just didn't articulate them very well. But he's viciously being attacked. But one of the points he made is that you can come out on the record and you can talk about murdering 4,000 black people within one album and nothing is said. That's because the capitalists said, "Okay, look here, we're gonna exploit a vulnerable population that does not have control over any of the systems or the resources that control their lives. So we can easily promote music that is self-destructive to these people, and you're gonna have very little blowback to it because they don't have any power." And that's what happens. That's why, you can see people who say something about Jews, people who have political power, and they get cut out. They get canceled. You can say something about the LGBT community, which has political power, and you get canceled for that. But you can do whatever you want to black people. You can say whatever you want to about black people. You might get a protest, but that's about it. Your business is not going to get taken away from. Your livelihood is not going to get taken away from. Nothing is going to get taken away from. And that's one of the contradictions of capitalism, because it's based on exploitation. And being that black people have no control over the resources in our own community, then we are a vulnerable population and we're just set there prime for the exploitation. That's why when people come into the United States, they go straight to the black people and set up shop because we're easily exploited. You can't go into other people's neighborhood and set up like that because they're not going to allow you to exploit them. So under capitalism, which is a predatory system, the most vulnerable people are always going to be, the easy targets, and they're always going to be in danger. And that's kind of the opposite of how socialism operates, because the nature of socialism is to make sure that everybody's okay. Make sure that everybody's okay. Now, people who benefit from the exploitation ain't gonna like that. And in this country, you gain much power and wealth and success and influence by exploitation. And the people who are at the top are the people who excel at exploitation. And anytime there's a system that comes that threatens to get rid of that exploitation, then that's a threat. That's a threat. And that's why you see so people, who advocate for socialism under attack. Nations that advocate, they're trying to bring about socialism under attack, even though, as you said, European countries, they benefit from like socialist policies all the time. Switzerland is doing great, and that's damn near a socialist country, But anyway, I'll let you pick it up.
Yeah, I want to say that we have to make sure that we correct our errors in terms of our analysis. When we talk about Jews, we're talking about Zionists.
Thank you.
See, because Jews are not a race of people, it's a religion, Judaism. And many people embrace, Judaism, even some of our people. So consequently, the Zionists, who have a state called Israel, that they call Israel, which is actually Palestine, are manipulating, any country that they're in, and with what they call anti-Semitism, they use that term as if people are trying to come against them because of their religion. The people who come out in America, you only have 6 million people, so-called Zionists, and talking about the white people that call themselves Jews. And so consequently, so what I'm saying, they have more influence, over policy than 40-some million Africans or 40-some million Mexicans are. You know what I'm saying? and they have become and adopted a part of the white nation. You know what I'm saying? And so consequently, but nobody wants to talk about the African Holocaust that's still continuing, and reparations and all that. And these people have gotten reparations, but they want more. You see, but they have control over areas. So we're not talking about a religion. When we talk about we're talking about Zionism, which says is a political philosophy, a political ideology that has allowed a certain group of people who call themselves Jews to take over other people's land and take over power, in their own interest. So consequently, anytime and they used to be
we used to be the franchise for them. The NAACP was set up by the Zionists, because they wanted to be protected against being lynched, and so that they put black folks in the NAACP and continued an anti-lynching campaign, which kept Jews from being further lynched in America, and they became in control of, and they've been in control of cultural things. They, the black culture, the artists, such as Langston Hughes and different artists and stuff, were basically, supported by this element, and they became over us, and before white people decided to make them part of the white nation, you know what I'm saying? So consequently, and when I was in college, we were saying black literature. We started saying black power, black literature, and all. And we had people saying there's no such thing as black literature, in America. And the main people who were in charge and control of saying that were people who were like Zionist, Jews, and who August Meyer, one guy, who was basically an expert on black culture, you know what I'm saying. But then we started taking control of our cultural patterns and things like that in the 1960s and 1970s.
Hey, I wanted to go to something you just said, because you said something extremely important, and I'm so glad you said it, because you made a distinction between like Judaism and Zionism, because that's something that is not understood and that's confusing. Because actually, when you start just attacking like Jews or whatever and stuff like that, you're condemning like a religion, and that's not really what anybody is really trying to do. That's really something that happens out of ignorance. You know what I'm saying? So I'm so glad you did that, and I want you to come back to Zionists, and let's have a discussion, because you
Zionism was set up in the 19th century. The founder of Zionism name was Theodore Herzl. In other words, they want their strategy was to get next to any nation like that was in power, like Britain, or colonial power. To say that we need to have a homeland in Palestine. But before then, the colonies like Britain, they were resisting. They were going to give them land in Uganda. You know what I'm saying? And they would have gladly accepted that, because it would have given them a base, to have a nation, right? But ultimately, in 1917, Wiseman and Smuts, Wiseman, who was a Zionist, he was a chemist, and he was able to make bombs and stuff like that. This was in the middle of World War I, and he agreed to give Britain, the access to the bombing, whatever the system was. And in South Africa, he was in South Africa. Smuts was a Boer president of South Africa. This was in the middle of World War I, and so Britain agreed to that Israel, that Jews should have homeland in Palestine. There was no Israel then, so Palestine. And so they gave them the right to go in and, buy up land and do stuff, and create their community and stuff in Palestine. And behind the so-called Holocaust, well, I ain't gonna say the so-called Holocaust. The Holocaust was not just Jews. It was the Holocaust were gypsies and other people who are not, hear what I'm saying? People who opposed the Nazis and all that. There was a lot of millions of people that were in this whole Holocaust, and not just what the Zionists who call themselves Jews. So, but they did get a reparations thing in the United States in 1947, because they had the Stern Gang. The Stern Gang included Moshe Dayan and Golda Meir and all that, and they were fighting against Britain, so they can, so they could seize control of land in Palestine. So we had a black guy that became that was part of the United States UN named Ralph Bunche. In 1947, Ralph Bunche got Britain, and the United States under Ralph Bunche got the United States Britain to agree to create the state of Israel. Okay, and the state of Israel had a certain amount of land. It was not the whole of Palestine. So in 1947, they created the state of Israel, and then the Arab states, were objective to it, and Israel was able to seize control of Palestine, because Palestinians fled villages, and the Israeli Zionists, they under the Stern gang, they came into power, and they eliminated about 400 villages that had been inhabited by Palestinians, and then they seized control of a lot more than they were supposed to have been, given.
I wanna
go ahead.
Stop right there, because I want to kind of focus on that right there, because I think that's really important, because people look at Israel and they get mystified, like, oh, it's the Bible, these are biblical, these are chosen people, and realistically, I would think the only reason you think they're chosen people, because in 1920, when the printing press came out, it was these Zionists, so-called Zionists, who controlled it, and they controlled the printing word, and they controlled the printing press. And this is just something, that is not a biblical, something that's actually biblical.
Okay, so these people were people who were European.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were people who were like Hebrew, they called them Hebrews, that had not left so-called Palestine. You know what I'm saying? So consequently, these people, and like I said, the people that did Zionism, they were like doing the diaspora. That was when I go back to Theodore Herzl and Chaim Weizmann, who became the first president of the state of Israel. So consequently, this is what I'm saying. So they finally got their state. But there have been several wars in which they have claimed control, and that's why you only have the West Bank and the Gaza Strip being inhabited by Palestinians. They're supposed to have power.
But we know what's happening not even today. That the state of Israel is assaulting those areas.
Yeah, and I wanted to dive into that, because like you said, the European power structure basically said, okay, you can have this area in Israel.
Right.
But the thing is like, in Palestine. But this area was already inhabited.
Yes.
So it seemed like they're using the same policy that they did with the Americas and the native populations.
Okay. So the biggest population outside of the state of Israel
is in New York City. That's where you have the Zion base is in New York City, and so they have more influence over Congress and than almost any group. Like I said, they're only about 6 million as a whole. Talking about Zionists, you hear what I'm saying? People that and they have used the term anti-Semitism to get their way anywhere they are, and because of the myth of the Holocaust, 6 million supposedly killed the Holocaust that they claim 6 million. But what I'm saying is there were millions of people who practiced Judaism that were in the so-called prison camps and stuff like that, and they were killed. So we don't want to deny that, but we want to deny that that this is the reason why they should have the state of a country that's Palestine. You know what I'm saying? That the Palestinians, they have taken over, and many of the Palestinians don't even are not even allowed to live in the state of so-called Israel. They're in Jordan. That's where the West Bank. They over from the West Bank, the East Bank is a bunch of people in Jordan. Who are Palestinians, who were formerly in Palestine. What they call Palestine.
And and we got to think about these boundaries
that are being drawn and all that, by the Europeans and all that. So consequently, now you see the state of Israel, they got the power enough to get into the fight in Ukraine, and show them how to shoot down so-called drones. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, this is what we have to begin doing. But so we don't want to we don't want to make the mistake of criticizing a religion, because it's not a religion. It's a political organization that is an ideology, and they call it Zionism. And it goes back 100 years ago. When Theodore Herzl and all that, created the term Zion. In other words, and their strategy is to use whatever the country is most powerful at a time to get their way. And so they got it through the United States in 1947 under Ralph J. Bunche was a black guy. He was given the first, Nobel Peace Prize, that as a result of helping to create the state of Israel, inside of Palestine.
So something you said a little while ago, how you talked of one of the tactics they use in order to seize control and to prevent resistance from the things that they do, right, is they weaponize the word anti-Semitic. Right. And this is something that I see a lot of organizations do when they get to gain a certain level of political power. They weaponize a certain word, and anytime someone critiques them, regardless of how legit this critique is, then they say, well, you're anti-Semitic. Right. If you critique the LGBT community, then you're homophobic or you're transphobic, even though you might have, a perfectly logical, reasonable critique or criticism of the organization, not the people, but the organization. Then they use that to attack you. And I guess they have enough power to enforce that narrative on the masses of the population, and you get attacked, and really in an illogical way that really shuts down any resistance to what you're trying to do.
Right. You remember they shut up Whoopi Goldberg on that program.
Yeah.
Her apologized for saying something about that. That was true. The reality was true, but
she said, I think she said Jewish people are white people or something like that.
Right. Something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what I'm saying, anytime that we speak out in terms of justice or whatever, they're going to say if something they're doing wrong, they're going to call it anti-Semitic. They're going to call us anti-Semitic or anybody anti-Semitic.
So definitely, this is why you always try to give your flowers to your elders right now, because they're just filled with a wealth of knowledge, and like he our elder just pointed out, because a lot of times we look at what happens, and we will regurgitate this narrative about the Jews control the world, the Jews, and all of these type of things. But like you said, we're not attacking a religion, we're attacking a political ideology, a political organization, Zionists, which has done things which have allowed a small minority group of people to have a very uneven distribution of the power, in their hands. And it's nothing wrong, because no organization should be above critique. Right. That's something that I always say, because the LGBT, if you say something bad about the LGBT, you get attacked. You say something bad about the Zionists, as you said, you get attacked. But there's no organization that should be above criticism. It's a difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism, and you should always embrace constructive criticism. And I'm glad you pointed that out, comrade. You got anything you want to add to this conversation? You know what? Let's go to some of these comments, man. Go to some of the comments.
Yeah, pull these shades off. You know what? I can do this.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I can do that. So, where do we stop off? We got a lot of shout outs to us, peace and power.
Yeah, just find one with it.
Mm-hmm. I gotta shut it down, then go to.
I'll tell you what, I'll click it. I'll click it for you. Okay. If I can find it, y'all bear with us, y'all.
Yeah. Well, Karina Akri Paez. Oh,
so there you go.
Sharing wisdom and comrades Thank you for sharing wisdom, comrades. Excellent discussion.
Yeah, speak up, man.
Oh, yeah. Do I have my mic on? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, we can, but you just start whispering.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we got a shout out from Karina. Chicana, she gave a shout out as well. Hunt in cold water. I'm trying to get that one. Utah makes cold weather. B1, Black Power.
Tell you what, just
see what's on there.
Right there.
Yeah, okay. So we got Peace and Power beautifully.
That's Veronica.
Veronica, okay. Melanated Brothers. Peace and Power, Sister Queen. Yeah, we got to thank you for the tag, sisters.
Who was that? That's somebody I'm not familiar with.
Marcus Smiling Bear, hunting in cold weather. Yeah, well, we need to know more about that brother, because all of us need to be able to hunt in cold weather. Melly Terry.
Know who Melly Terry is?
Yeah, I know Melly Terry. So we got, not one lie was told, but they are showing him and others who are in control. And that's right. As long as we don't have our own independent sovereign nation, we got to go by their laws, their policies and procedures, their statutes, their culture that they create through social engineering. Louis Farrakhan and Khalid Muhammad exposed these Zionists back in the 90s, especially in the Nation of Islam book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. Yeah, they've always been talking about them. You know, one of the things that we must do as a people is utilize what we have to create what we need. Never forget the black Holocaust that is still going on. You're right, sister.
Make sure you tell them their name.
Yeah, Melly Terry said, never forget the black Holocaust, the black cost that is still going on. And that's what Grandmaster Teacher mentioned as well. Melly Terry, great comment. Veronica, I wonder why the right and continued genocide of black and brown people.
Yeah, she was right.
That's right.
Continued
genocide of black people.
Black and brown people.
That's right. That's right. And they're gonna always try to keep a wedge between us. We gonna make sure we get together. S. Rogers says, good afternoon, everyone. Free the land. All right. I know you with us. You talking about free the land. Free the land. I will, by any means necessary. Go ahead, Sister Susan Rodney.
So we've been talking about socialism, and the conversation has just went to a place where we were talking about the Kanye West comments and how he's been attacked, and our Grandmaster Teacher did a masterful job of really analyzing really when we critique the Zionist movement or the Zionist organization, and to make sure that we're not attacking a religion, the Jewish religion, because that's not what we're doing. And he made a distinction between Judaism and the Zionist movement. And that's very important, because the Zionist movement is a political movement. Judaism is a religion, right, which black people are a part of. And I think one of the things that Kanye West pointed out were that black people have been a part of this religion for a very long time. And if you look at the origins of it, you can see it within African people. And he says basically that, I guess, us being in America and disconnected from our history, that we have a legitimate claim to this religion, as anybody else. And that's one of the things. I think one of the problems that Kanye West has is he's not very good at articulating what he's trying to say. And I think that might have to do with, some of the mental issues he have going on, because he'll be all over the place. And, that's another subject within itself. But the brother's being brutally attacked. And I mean, and that kind of goes to your point because you said that because of this Zionist movement, they have amassed a tremendous amount of power and control. And anytime that you attack this or critique or criticize this particular movement, then they have weaponized this word called anti-Semitic, and they use it to attack people. And that's what happened to Kanye West. And and it's important that we analyze what's actually going on. So when we go forward with our analysis, we are correct. And but yeah, I mean, I agree. But initially, we was talking about socialism and the contradiction between socialism and capitalism. And as everybody, uh, well, as we pointed out, the capitalist system under capitalism is not based on making sure that everybody has the resources and the things they need to survive. It's about gaining the maximum profit for the ruling elite, even if that means at the expense and the exploitation of the masses of people. And as long as this situation exists, it's going to be hard for the masses of people to raise to a level, or at least reach their highest level of human potential. So, therefore, if we're really trying to honestly raise the conditions of humanity in general, then you're not going to be able to do it as long as you have an economic system that is anti-humanity, anti-humane, that's based on the exploitation of the people. As long as there is a benefit from exploiting people, then you're always going to have people to exploit you. As long as there is a reward, because people kind of behavior is controlled by reward and punishment. And under capitalism, there is a reward for exploiting people. That's just the way it is. You are rewarded for that. You go into business, the most cutthroat, the hardest, the most. You look at the people who are most successful. They're also, even though if they have a nice personality, they have a certain charisma about them. There is a ruthlessness within them. Because they have that in order to be successful under this system. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it produces. So that's why we're advocating for something that is opposite, because if you create a system that is not rewarding exploitation, but rewarding a collectivity, working together, making sure that your brother is okay, is just as you will make sure that you're okay. If you create an economic system that is based on that rewards those principles, then humanity rises opposed to humanity falling. So it's a principle saying that I like to always quote: if the system falls, then humanity will rise. And that system that we're talking about is capitalism. You want to add to anything to that?
Yeah, I will say that because we know what happened, even with Dr. Martin Luther King, in some of his last speeches, the so-called Poor People's Campaign, when he was getting ready to trying to organize, they were calling for a national income, for everybody, and things like that. That's socialist, socialist policy, and he was becoming too powerful in his speeches and talking about the United States and how the United States is the most violent country in the world in terms of, and all over the world, making wars and all that. And we see what happened, even to the Apostle of Peace. Dr. King was assassinated when he started talking about, pulling together all the people, the poor, in terms of the Poor People's Campaign. And that and basically he was decrying capitalism and advocating policy of socialism, by which because the United States was deemed to be the most wealthy country, and everybody could be getting money enough to survive, not more to survive, but to live. Mm-hmm. So consequently, we see even when somebody he was an American dreamer, the American dreamer was killed, because he was advocating policies that would have, led to the overthrow of the capitalist, system, and he was coming toward the movement, toward the Black Power, the liberation movement, mm-hmm. and all that. So consequently, that's what we deal with in terms of that. And also, when we start talking about socialism,
You know, in other words, that's why we say we have the right to have our own nation. You know, and since the so-called what they call it, League of Nations, United Nations, every people have a right to have their own, to have their nation, to have their, you know. So when we talk about it, and that's a socialist policy, you know. And even if I don't care what anybody says about Russia, even the Soviet Union, when it just, you know, when it broke up, all the people, you know, they were socialist republics, and they all get their own way. You know, there was no what they call that, war to try to keep all the people, all of, you know, Russia, people that were around Russia, you know, in that formation. So we got to think of, and so NATO and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization that was formed in 1945 at the end to oppose communism, is today creating situations by which war is, you know, is in the Ukraine, and then they're doing things in Somalia and other places, you know, in the world, and dropping drones all over Africa. You hear what I'm saying? But nobody's saying nothing about that, because they recognize that the people are trying to rise up against the capitalist exploitation of their resources. And in places like Nigeria, where the people can no longer fish because of the oil, you know, because the capitalists have, you know, messed up and put the oil in the water around Nigeria, you know, and they've killed off all the fish and all those things. These are the kind of things that we got to understand. What are the crimes of capitalism that are going to bring us about a situation by which socialism must come to be that solution for us?
And I'm glad you pointed that out. And I wanted to read a comment that is relevant to what we're talking about. From Sister Veronica. She said, shouts out to Mama Ayo and Queen Salma Ott, who made a trip to Jackson, Mississippi to deliver clean water to our people in need. We are stronger together, safe travels. And that's right. Yesterday, they did go down to Jackson, Mississippi. And thanks you to everybody who donated, who brought down supplies, who donated to the Cash App. It is a successful program. But I mean, this is kind of just the fact that we need to do things like that. Things like that is needed. And I'm not saying, oh, well, we saved the day, because it basically takes a collective effort between all of us. And we just did a very small part in just trying to help our people out. But the reality that we need to do things like this is evidence of what we've been talking about. In Jackson, Mississippi, you have a government which has been taking funds that have been allocated for the infrastructure of the people. Now, Mississippi is the poorest state, not one of the poorest states, but the poorest state in the U.S. And you have people like Brett Favre and the former governor embezzling millions of dollars to build a daughter's volleyball stadium and taking it and putting it in them pockets. And this thing is going all over Mississippi. This is money that is supposed to be going to the poor people. Meanwhile, in Jackson, Mississippi, the infrastructure is so tore down that they can't, anytime there's a heavy rain, they can't even have clean water. And you have people who've been suffering for months without clean water. You know, and this is just unacceptable. And these type of things happen all over the country. You know, some similar happened in Michigan, in Flint. You know, we understand what happened there. They're still struggling, but it's not unique to Flint. It's not unique to Jackson, Mississippi. Really, in all Black cities within America, you see similar things, or at least a lot of them, you see similar things, because, like I said, we're one of the most vulnerable communities. And capitalism preys on the vulnerable, the most vulnerable. And that's why we're advocating for socialism, for scientific socialism, because, you know, it's like, if that's kind of like the ultimate sign of humanity. You know, how do you take care of your poor, your weak, your helpless? How do you take care of that? Do you lift them up? Do you build them up? Do you put them in a situation that is better than it was before so they can sustain themselves? Or do you take advantage of them? Or do you prey upon them? You know what I'm saying? It's like capitalism is like a lion in the wood. They see a pack of deers or whatever. If they see one that's hurt, that's the one they go for because that's an easy target, an easy meal. And the capitalists are the same thing. They see a vulnerable community that does not have control over the institutions within their community. They say, oh, there's that injured deer. We can swoop down on them and we can target them and we can exploit them and we can have our bellies full at their expense and exploitation. That's why we got to get rid of this crap, y'all. We can do better. We always talk about trying to be equal to this system. I'm like, who are they to be equal to? Who is this to be equal to? Is what I should say. What is this system to be equal to? We are better than that. Our ancestors were better than that. Our ancestors had enough humanity to create systems that were based on communalism. But, thank you for that comment. And of course, thank you for delivering the water and supplies to our people. Because, hey, it's going to take acts like this in order for us to collectively make it as a people until we can ultimately overthrow this system and implement something that benefits the whole of society.
And the governor of Mississippi is attacking the mayor, black mayor. Mega Evans City, Jackson, Mississippi, has 80% African population, and they have been denied, the services of the so-called government, the money that coming out is supposed to go to the city has been delayed consistently, and they're trying to attack Chokwe, brother Mayor Chokwe, and create a situation around the water, trying to make the African population responsible, for the water, the government that was elected by the Africans, and this is something constantly they do. They're going to do everything they can. If anybody's trying to act in our interest, they're going to try to get away where they can eliminate them, get them out of office or whatever, and try to blame that on the victim rather than blame it on their policy, their white supremacist policy that has allowed Jackson to be put in that. Because what other capital city that is not controlled by Africans is treated like the people of Jackson by the government. Even the governor of the state, trying to criticizing the governors of Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, and this is not unique to Jackson. I'm from this place called Holly Springs, Mississippi, and I have one of my brothers down there who I've been knowing for a long time. He's getting into politics and running for office, and now that they're kind of getting into office. He sees some things that have been happening, and he's basically said that there have been monies that were allocated for the people to build up the people, because like where I'm from is majority African also. But these people, these monies that were supposed to go to the people are going to these Europeans' pockets. And they're just exploiting it, and the people just stay poor and not getting what they need. And then you look and you blame the victim, and that's something that America has constantly done. They create conditions, they create circumstances, they create situations, and then they blame the people for living under these conditions. They create the poverty, and then they say, "Why are you so poor?" They miseducate you, and then they say, "Why are you so dumb?" They'll put crack into your community, then lock you up for it. This is the very mode of operation of the United Snakes of America. Somebody just left a real long detailed comment. You want to read that, comrade?
Yeah, Commerce City, Colorado is one of the most contaminated cities in the country due to the refineries. The water has never been drinkable, and the air is contaminated beyond belief. No surprise the city is populated by brown people. What is happening to our people would never be allowed for the privilege. I think I read that last sentence wrong. What is happening to our people?
It's like what is happening to our people would never be allowed for the privilege. That's extremely that's right. You know what I'm saying? You look at black and brown people in America, we are the most vulnerable communities here. And like you said, and Melly Queen said, "No, they ain't lions, they hyenas." But that's what happens when you have a predatorial system. The people who are most vulnerable get preyed upon by this vicious, inhumane system. And people, we got to, that has to be the fight. The fight can't be, well, I want to vote for the Democrats, I want to vote for the Republicans. No, that can't be the fight. That's not the struggle. You know what I'm saying? The struggle has to be to get rid of a system that is producing the problem. You know, if you wanna heal from your trauma, then you can't stick around the source of the trauma. You have to remove yourself from the source of the trauma. So that's what we got to do, and we understand, we identify that capitalism is the source of the trauma. It is the source of the poverty. It is the source of the crime. It is the source of all of these negative things in society. So we have to remove that out of the equation if we ever have any type of chance of solving the problem.
Yeah, and also we have a right to the Chicano population are calling for Aztlan to, in other words, land. The Aztlan is southwest so-called United States and California. All that was part of Mexico. And the people who have been, still here are called themselves Chicano. Sometimes they say Chicano, Mexicano. And just like we're calling for a Republic of New Africa, they're calling for Aztlan, ATGL. In other words, to get control of that land that has been stolen through war, through the so-called Mexican-American War. And so that's what we have allies, natural allies that are part of the native people and all. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that the Mexican population, they're part of the native population also. So combination we began to look at those kind of things. This is what the sister was talking about, Culver City, because all of that was part of Mexico, and the people, the population that stayed there, they became oppressed, colonized, by the United States government. They, made the so-called territorial states, and so consequently, even when we talk about, what we're trying to do in terms of creating the Republic of New Africa, and we have a government, we have to be in alliance with those forces, that are talking about the same kind of conditions and things that we're talking about.
And you are absolutely right, because the reality, and this is something, all of us learned when we became politically aware and our political consciousness began to rise. We understood that this system of exploitation and global capitalism is a global system of exploitation. They have went all around the world exploiting individuals, murdering people, raping people, stealing land. So when you look at the Chicano movement and like you said, free as land, free the land. Excellent. You know what I'm saying? Our movements are basically our parallels of each other. You know what I'm saying? It's only common that we make these type of alliances, sis. And I think comrade, you dropped off the screen. But it's important that hold on, let me try to get you back. Take over, comrade, man. Take over.
No, I like the beauty. I like the beauty of the fact that we can actually sit here and articulate some of the reasons why we are natural allies of our brothers and sisters here on this Western Hemisphere. It has always been the case. Never has there been a time when any of these Europeans can say that they have been doing things in this part of the world for the benefit of us or our brothers and sisters, the Chicanos. What they have done is become a common enemy for the both of us and the many others that have encountered a relationship with these demons, these devils. We have to begin to create the vehicles, it's just like NABA, to get the word out about our unity, to get the word out about the things that we need to do. Oh, yeah, to get the word out about our unity, about the things that we need to do as a people, to make sure that we stay connected.
It's okay. I just let them use mine.
Oh, okay. All right, because I was going to just get them back up here.
No, because it's after hours, so we're going to.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
Well, no, you
correct. You are absolutely correct within that. And Sister Karina, she said, what's this? Aslan Libre. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to translate. What's that? What's that?
Porque yo hablo español. Yo soy un reino aquí que vivía aquí en Estados Unidos, but that means.
Yeah. So you just been knowing Spanish all this time, and you just ain't saying nothing.
Man, my love is for the people. So I tend to learn what I need to know to be able to communicate with our people as time goes on. And we are not in the concrete jungles fighting our war. We're going to have to be in the wilderness. We're going to have to be everywhere. Sometimes we're going to have to find ourselves in Central America, South America, preparing to come back here to do what we need to do to get our land. Yeah. But we got to be able to identify with our brothers and sisters. Language is one of the ways to do that.
Let me say, well, I'm finna act stupid for a minute. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you get serious in a second. I ain't just finna let you go and just speak that Spanish like that and like it ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? You holding back on me and stuff like that.
Well, our people need to have a way of communicating that other people can't. One of my goals is to be able to talk to our people on their terms. And identify with their plight and their struggles in the best way I can as far as communicating. So Spanish and French are the two languages I have under my belt because of the Haitians and because all of the Chicanos out there. I wanted to make sure it was a point that before I left this dimension, that wherever I needed to go to get the help that I needed, I would be able to communicate with my brothers and sisters.
Hey, teach me some smooth Spanish so I can sound cool.
Man, it's about liberation. Yeah, so I do speak English, I do speak French, I do speak Spanish. Those are the three languages that I know if I went back to the motherland, most of the colonized nations of Black people have been colonized by those three, for sure. But I'm also learning Swahili. I want to learn a few other Fulani, house tongue. I want to learn them all. But right now, since we are spread around the world through colonized relationships with our colonizers, I have to learn the colonizers' language because most of our people have been colonized. And so I just wanted to make that an issue, a point. But Grandmaster Teacher, at this point, can you continue with the feedback?
Okay. Yes, I want to say that in Colombia, there's a Black organization in Colombia. It's an African member of all Africa is living in Colombia.
Hold on, he ain't getting no sound for some reason.
Palinka.
Just keep it going.
Yeah, Palinka. You're talking about in the Palinka region of Colombia.
Colombia, and there's a national Black organization called Black Liberation for Peace,
right,
in Colombia. And I want to do a shout out because Brother Pastor Rick, I talked with him a whole lot, brother that coined the phrase Black Power.
Right. And he informed me about, he was down in Colombia, and his brothers down in Colombia, they organized, and they have an organization that's talking about Pan-Africanism. In other words, I think a lot of people don't know that Colombia has the fifth largest African population, in the Western Hemisphere. And so we need to do a shout out to our brothers and sisters that organized, because we know that the United States government has created exploitation to indigenous Colombians who have become part of the oppressive force in Colombia. And so therefore, we got to begin to link up. This is New Africa. Right. This is link up. Our link up has to be throughout. And I want to say too that in Brazil, it's a state secret. The numbers of Africans that are in Brazil. Right. So we have to ourselves do our research so we know where we are and what our numbers are anywhere we are, so we can organize our people, to liberate ourselves, in every area of the Western Hemisphere that we exist, everywhere we live, in the world. And so consequently, I'm saying when we do the expansion of New Africa, the Western Hemisphere, we can link up with the other 50 million Africans that are in
the Western Hemisphere, and that includes Colombia and Haiti, and and all the Caribbean islands, and So and Marcus Garvey paper, The Negro World, was published in Spanish, French, and English.
Right. Yeah. One of the things we need to let people know that have not really been privy to the history, we can actually say we need to relink up, because when you look at these countries, Colombia for one, Venezuela for another one, Bolivia another one. When you go to these countries, their national flags have the same colors of Haiti to represent the unity of them receiving their freedom and liberation as a nation through the help of Haitians. And you can actually go to squares and little areas in those countries where they pay homage to Haitians, like Toussaint, and all the brothers and sisters. Simon Bolivar was one of the people that brought the assistance and got the assistance that he needed from the Haitians. And this is so we can relink up.
And people of Mexico also.
Yeah, exactly. And all over the Western Hemisphere. So we've been together. We just haven't been controlling the media as much as we needed to get the positive information out. But NABA is going to be one of the new sources for us to get the word out and for our people to hear the word.
Definitely. And right now, comrade, you're the only person who got sound. We got all kind of technical difficulties. So I think that's a good time to end the show.
Wrap for the day,
yeah, to wrap this up. But yeah, as always, make sure y'all check out all of our broadcasts. Tomorrow we will be doing the New African Perspective with Sama Art and Mama Ayodele, and then I'll say a couple of words too.
Booyaka, booyaka.
And Tuesday we got a brand new program that's 10 o'clock a.m. with Mama Ayo and Sama Art, and they're gonna be talking about a whole bunch of different things. And that is the foundation of the nation, which is the family, man, woman, and child, definitely. And do not forget, Thursday, you got me and Comrade Atiba. We're going to be clowning, acting a fool, having a good old time. That's conversation between comrades. And Friday, Melly Queen, which is out of Facebook jail counter. I think she broke out. Yeah, she our own Asada Shakur. But yeah, she has the Truth and Power Corner. And then, hey, next, what's that? next Sunday again. Hey, we're gonna be right back again at 12. Yeah, 12 o'clock. But today we started at 12:30. We had technical difficulties, but we appreciate everybody for coming out. You know what y'all want to see a movie today?
Yeah, we want to see a movie. Yeah.
What you want to see, man? What you want to see? Don't say New Jack City or Players Club. We looking for a revolutionary movie. What about Deacons of Defense?
Yeah, that'll work. Deacons of Defense.
Deacons of Defense. We're gonna be playing Deacons of Defense. And if you haven't seen that movie, it is awesome. We're gonna be playing that today. I will say about 5 o'clock
on NABA Radio. What's the name of it?
No, it's just on NABA. Oh yeah, if y'all haven't had an opportunity, go to NABA Radio. We should have a link on our page, and you can go check it out. Right now, we just playing all revolutionary music. We got revolutionary R&B, revolutionary hip hop, and of course, revolutionary reggae all day. So that's what we're doing right now. So go in if you just want to sit back and vibe and just chill, relax, unwind. Check it out, man. And sister Veronica said, "And it's fire." You know what I'm saying? She been on there checking it out, no doubt. So appreciate all your support, and of course, we love y'all, and we really, really, really look forward to really building something special here. We look forward to doing more than just talking. And like with the sisters going down to help support our brothers and sisters in Jackson's yesterday, that's an example of the things that we have to collectively do. We have to do more of those things because it is our responsibility to correct our problems. We can talk about what the white man doing all day, but at some point in time, we got to recognize the pattern. We got to understand that they ain't really, their number one priority is not to help the people. Is to help them fatten their pockets. So therefore, we have to take control, and we have to take responsibility, and we have to do for self. And ultimately, we have to get rid of that situation. We gotta create a new situation, a new development, a new reality. But until then, we have to collectively work together because, as our Grandmaster teacher always say, as individuals, we can't really do much. But collectively, you know, one finger's not that strong, but you put 5 of them together, ball them up in a fist, and you can knock somebody's ass out. And that's what we're trying to do, knock this system of oppression out. I'm Brother Prophecy with Comrade Kakaye and our Grandmaster teacher Fadali, and we lead you with our freedom cry, and that is free the land,
free the land, free the land.
Definitely.